welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, a special episode. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Hedge.
That's right. We are finally getting back to some of our normal content. So special episode. Like we can't have too much of our normal content.
Listen, it's been weeks. You guys have gotten a break, right? You've been in that time spiral world we put you in for a bit as you caught up. Now you're back. You just listen to the Mel episode. We're going to give you more content as we wait for this next season to surprise us.
All this means is that we are eating well, friends. We are eating very well.
So today we're talking about The Root of Empire, which is a brief trailer that came out. Seems to be an immediate follow-up to the Welcome to Noxus trailer we've talked about before. Go listen to that episode. We had fun. But before we do that, housekeeping up top, as always. You can listen to us everywhere. You can visit us at podcastcore.com. Remember, that's podcast COR for all of our info. And then email us at the same name at gmail.com. Follow us on all the platforms. That helps us with discoverability. We don't have sponsors at the moment or anything like that, so we appreciate it. And then leave a like and comment wherever you listen the most. But word of mouth has gotten us this far. So tell a friend to learn how to manipulate others by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Yes, your favorite podcast to learn gaslighting techniques.
Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss.
That's right. Welcome to Noxus.
So this is for season 1 of Welcome to Noxus, as we like to call it, Arcane season 3. And it basically is a monologue. It's a short monologue with some stylistic animation that focuses on the Noxus conflict. And all good stories told in 3 parts, but this is not long enough. So we're just going to do it in one go here. But we start with LeBlanc looking at that same mysterious ink board that seems to be like some magical surveillance system she has that only she can understand. And she mentions that Noxus is a place in Runeterra that is both feared and admired because it's a place that's built on strength, but it's rooted in hardships that it's overcome. And that's very true. Right, we've talked about that a lot of how we see Noxus as a more exciting subject matter than Demacia, even though Demacia, like, listen, we're talking about good to great, right? When we compare the two, but Noxus has so much potential because of its roots in both, if you go far back enough to the whole Mordekaiser situation, and then you fast forward to essentially assembling a bunch of previous slave nations to make what we have now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like Noxus has always kind of been positioned as, the quote unquote like bad guys.
Yeah.
Like when you look at this from like the very beginning of League of Legends, long before I think that anyone at Riot ever thought about building a world, right? Yeah. But even back then it's like Noxus were always the bad guys. And so I think it's been one of those things of like, we've acknowledged the Noxus potential, and it's because since they've been treated like the bad guys, we haven't gotten a lot of current info. We've just gotten more of like where they came from. Yeah. And the blueprint of where they came from is good. There is a lot of potential there, but otherwise, since they tend to be the guys that are getting hoisted as the bad guys to have your good versus evil content. Yeah. It's like, okay, the less we know about Noxus, the better for the story. But that's no longer the case anymore, because if we're going to talk about like good and evil, we're going to look at like Demacia, and Demacia treats it very black and white. Yeah. It's not actually black and white, but that's how they look at it. Yeah. So they're the ones that we're going to look at for that story now. So then that means Noxus needs to use this potential. And I think that's why we're getting so excited about it. But for this video, right now we haven't gotten deep enough to really go that deep.
Oh, dude, it's funny. Hedge is already prepping you guys for the discussion section. Stick around for those because they're great. We think we're smart. And and even him mentioning like the color scheme, like Noxus is red, Demacia is blue. Like it's very on its face. And if you talk to the average passerby that looks at League of Legends or knows what it is but knows nothing about it, when they look at Demacia, they're like, oh, cute girl Lux. Oh, Garen the John Everyman. oh, Lucian, the wild card. But when you look at all three of those characters, they're black sheep when it comes to Demacia. They're the outcast, quote unquote, of Demacian culture.
Yep.
So it's very the underpinning, no one understands it, but the people in the front of the box, their smiling faces, they're like, oh, that's the good guy. And then you see Noxus, you're like, Swain, oh, ew. You see Darius, you're like, oh no, the brute. And then Mordekaiser, it's like, oh, it's the devil. You can see how it's presented on its front face. But that's great for storytelling, right? You give people a simple entry point so they can open the door and come in the room. And the room is filled with
Yep.
goodness, right? And then they can dig deeper.
Yeah, and now we're actually looking at what is in the room,
Yeah.
and but it's taken a long time to get here.
Yeah.
But it's not a long
Just
time.
a decade plus.
Just a little bit. But it doesn't take long, as far as in this video, to get to like some of my favorite pieces of the video, which is like the way that they're not only using like the black, white, and red color in the
Mhm.
video, especially like when LeBlanc is like kind of changing the mirror to look at Noxus and that
Mhm.
color change, which I love that little sequence. It's awesome. But also LeBlanc's new design
Here we
is
go.
just absolutely stunning. No, I mean, don't copy this. Goth girls, stay away from me. I'm very vulnerable right now. And if you bully me, I will fall in love. So
Listeners
I
would
like
know,
the design.
Listener knows Hetch has a type, and it's unfortunate. And he should be imprisoned, but I don't want to do the show alone. And he mentioned the art direction, which is great, obviously. But for this one, it's very stylized for how this is presented. I like they went this direction. It reminds me more of like the things we would get with Runeterra, where we get little small stories here and there, and how those would have specialized art directions that were different from like the show and the content. Um, so that's cool. And in this section, we have it's all narrated by LeBlanc. It's her monologue. And at this point, we're getting some shots about the history of Noxus. So it's a shot that kind of shows the battle to defeat Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser the second time. Sorry. When he go listen to our Mordekaiser episode, it makes more sense. And then we see their participation in the Rune Wars, which this is huge because this is now using the actual show to mention the Rune Wars, which is a major point in history of Runeterra, right? It's what fucked up Magic completely, and kind of put us in the situation we're in now. And then we have LeBlanc mention to end this all off that all this history was a beautiful lie. And this will go into deeper at the end of the episode.
And this is where it is like all the comments that we have ever made as far as like the potential of Noxus like can be summed up in this one line, and it's always been because of the involvement of the Black Rose, as well as like some other old groups like your like Vladimir been around for centuries as well, but it's the Black Rose like pulling the strings, and this is one of the reasons that we make so many ties to certain real world events going on when we talk about Noxus, because it's like this is the history of Noxus, but now it is very clear that the history of Noxus has been written by LeBlanc. So now we're just taking LeBlanc
Maybe.
at face value.
Maybe.
And let me tell you, if you have ever shot a LeBlanc clone with a Lux Ultimate, you do not take LeBlanc at face value. Nothing hurts more than just seeing that last hit go. And then you get a question mark ping. And this is why I don't play the game anymore.
So after this point, LeBlanc insinuates that, like Hetch mentioned, Noxus' existence today is by her hands, that she planted the seeds early on that have rooted deep into every part of what Noxus is. Essentially, that she is the kingmaker of a sort, by taking a group of barbarians, as she says, and guiding them to the dream of true empire.
Yeah, and the art that's used as far as for this part is this is my favorite use of like when they start showing a lot of like the red color because again like red is very much like the Noxian color.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the imagery that we're looking at here, like with Mordekaiser and the Rune Wars, is mainly in black and white
Mm-hmm.
with some red pigmentations to differentiate things. But the reddest thing that comes out are the thorns
Mm-hmm.
growing from these seeds that LeBlanc's been planting. And it really does just is a great painting of what we've been saying for all this time, where it's like, you know, this is the real power of
Yeah.
Noxus, and everyone else with power has been given it by the Black Rose, whether they know it or not. Like that's the idea behind the Black Rose, and this is just kind of like, yeah, no, we have seen it, and you have not been wrong. LeBlanc is pulling the strings.
Yeah, and then we end this little, vignette with a slow zoomed out shot of a massive structure below ground of Noxus. And that structure seems to be supporting it. And the structure is surrounded by roots, while the Noxus above ground is shown as a bud and bloomed rose. And LeBlanc's final line after this is shown is, "And look at them now, ready to die for an illusion," which everyone is losing their mind off of that bar because it's so good. Because it's like we've said, as we've talked about Mel in the Mel episode and how Riot has earned the tropes that Mel is, right? As now our new pro tag. And I won't even say tropes, that's too much, right? That's me being hyperbolic. But LeBlanc, now that we know she is the big bad, right? Essentially. And the Black Rose is the largest form of, I guess, the negative part of the world that we've been presented so far, in the realm of what we have. It's like, okay, everyone's on board. I haven't seen a comment yet where everyone's like, oh, it's the Joker, right? Like, no one's doing that. Everyone's like, holy shit, we all saw it coming at some point. But now that we have like her new model, now that we have a monologue from her, because we don't have the season yet, that shows that even in her mind, she has the confidence to be the big bad, right? And we still don't know how she's going to do it or what she's going to reveal. And this kind of takes us to our general discussion section.
And I think that one of the biggest things that we can't take for granted is that LeBlanc is a very good big bad character when we are looking at Runeterra through the socio-political lens. And
great point.
I think one of the things that a lot of people might take for granted is the fact that Riot has started giving us so much more content, and they built that content not with Noxus first, but pretty much with anywhere else first, right? I mean, we are huge fans here of like the Freljord. Like we probably would have like argued like day in and day out if we got to be at those board meetings to like, let's start in the Freljord.
Yeah.
I might like, be a little bit like wishy-washy just because of how much I love Demacia, because it's like maybe Demacia is the place we can start with because Lux is a good face for the brand. Obviously Ionia, always been a popular story starter. So it's like there are places we could have started the story that didn't necessarily have to be Piltover. But the bottom line was that we didn't start in Noxus because I think it does a good job of setting the stage, not only of how dangerous Noxus is to the rest of the world, but what kind of danger it is to the rest of the world. Because the grand scheme of things, whatever political plot LeBlanc has her talons in across all of Runeterra, none of it matters if Volibear comes and destroys all of the land to make it look like the Freljord.
Exactly,
All right? Or none of it matters if a Ruination 4.0 happens.
Yeah.
None of it matters if Victor turns everyone into a hive mind. It's like the socio-political threats to Runeterra are not the only threats.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the things that could easily be taken for granted is because everyone is on board with like this getting ready to go to Noxus and like really being afraid of what LeBlanc is doing.
Yeah.
But they did a good job of setting the stage of like why no one else is worried about it, right? Because Piltover's got some shit going on. Like we were nearly all robots, and that's only the one story that we have an animation for it. Like we will tell you the other stuff that these poor people are fighting with.
Yeah,
you know, like Demacia has a complete prison break they're trying to keep under wraps.
We mentioned before that this scaling your story properly is very important, right? Because with any story you need, and this is why even when you look at sci-fi from over the last century, you look at fantasy stories, they always try to maintain certain human elements so we can connect with it. That's just good storytelling, right? And the first step is to have people care about characters, and once you care about characters, you care about where they immediately live, right? And the environment around them. And then once you care about that, then when they travel and they move around the world, you care about it more. So they're taking the proper steps because we know, like Hetch and I, we know the scale of where this can go, right? We know our history as Runeterran historians. We know that, it's the whole thing of, hey, your day may be hard, but the earth is a speck in a universe so vast, right? So it's like, does it really matter? And Runeterra has that same scale already implemented before the story's been told. So yeah, this is, as long as we care along the way, that's all that matters, right? For entertainment purposes, and they've nailed it. Just based on what we've seen from public opinion, right? And I'm sure they're seeing the numbers of like, okay, we made the right decision. Because like Hetch mentioned, we never guessed Piltover would be the starting point. It was literally at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I like it wasn't at the bottom of my list, and the only reason it wasn't at the bottom of my list was because of Jinx. Like, Jinx, because I always looked at it through the lens of like what characters are the most important.
Yeah,
as far as like when you think League of Legends, as far as like not as the casual fan, the hardcore fan, it's like. You're sick. Like we can't look at your brain. We can't look at your brain because it's sick. We're trying to think of the healthy mind. Yeah, but like so like Piltover was number 3 on my list specifically because of Jinx and Teemo.
Okay.
Because those are like easy faces. I put Demacia at 2, and thinking back now, that's probably a lot of personal bias.
Yeah.
But I put Demacia at 2 because of Lux, Vayne, and
Demacia was one for me.
Yeah, and then like Jarvan and Garen are kind of like the same thing, but still. And then number 1 for me was Ionia, because ninjas. Like Kennen, Akali, Shin, like you done, like easy. And Akali is arguably the biggest face in all of League of Legends. So it's like that. Yeah, that was my big 3. But Piltover was still at the bottom of that list because it was like, and of course, that looking back on it now, it's funny because it's like it made sense to me that it's bottom 3 because it's like, what story do you tell? In Piltover, like to put on the big screen, like what story that you follow, like with Jinx, it's like I don't see it. And now that we're here, it's like, okay, no, they made a great story to tell, which wasn't on my bingo card, right? It's like, I have the story here. I have it in front of me on the Riot's website. I have it. Yeah. So looking back, it's really funny. But yeah, that's why it wasn't on the list. But they did a good job of setting the stage, and now that's why we have the scale that we're talking about. They've presented it beautifully. I don't have to tell you the scale because the scale was put in really big, emboldened, italicized letters. The scale was set with Victor turning Jace into the last of the automatons. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff happening in this world, isn't there?
Yeah, and kind of to bring it back to the specific trailer, and LeBlanc specifically being the big bad to, Mel's protag, it kind of makes the previous trailer we got have a bit more meaning, right? Because Vladimir, we know, and listen to our Vladimir episode, we know his history. We know he's been around for a long time. We know his impact on Noxus. But even when you see that brief interaction he has with LeBlanc, he feels like a subordinate, right? He doesn't feel like he's the leader in that room. It feels like he's coming to, kind of talk to LeBlanc, like, hey, are we cool with this? Like, is everything so? When you have somebody so powerful with so much influence on Noxus going to ask someone else if everything's good, and that person telling them, don't worry about it, then there's some level of validity to her power. It's not just,
Yeah.
it's not feigned.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the Dracula Nosferatu
Yeah.
kind of comparison here, right? Like, I mean, Dracula is one of the most feared vampires ever. Let me go ask Nosferatu what he thinks.
Yeah,
Like, that's literally what
the
this
father,
scene-
yeah, the all father, right? It's like, let me go consult the big man. And this, what's cool about this beautiful lie, and how it's presented, is that it kind of opens us up to something that I didn't expect, because we're already doing retcons, right? Everybody's on board. We're saying, hey, some things from Arcane are very good. They're very cool concepts. Let's make those canon, right? Okay, cool. We like them. We appreciate it. But now you have a LeBlanc saying, hey, you're coming to my neck of the woods, and I'm telling you that all you've known, all you've heard is a lie. And not so much that you're not experiencing reality, right? This is not like a Zillion situation. It's not like a different timeline. We're not doing that anymore. We did a timeline thing. It was fun. But this is more like an untrustworthy narrator. I guess the best way to say it is like untrustworthy historian, where the way things happen may not be the way things appeared. And one example I have here is because in the previous episode, we talked about Valruknun, which is the Valhalla, quote unquote, of Runeterra. And this is a religion that is a very core piece of Mordekaiser's story. And Mordekaiser sought it out just to find nothing, essentially a purgatory of sorts, and then creating his own space instead. And that kind of leads into his story. Go listen to that. But what if that was a lie fed to Mordekaiser, knowing he would pursue it by the Black Rose, right? Like, how far back are we going to make this happen? And if we go before Noxus, then we started getting Shuriman territory, which they've mentioned that, we've mentioned that they made it very clear in their storytelling. The big three in this section they want to talk about is Piltover, Noxus, and Shurima. Well, based on LeBlanc's influence and how old we think she is, she had to have some influence in Shurima. What does that look like? Is there any beautiful lies there? Because there's a lot of shit. If you haven't listened to our, there was like a half a year that we did Shuriman content. Go look it up. There's a lot of history there. Eat your vegetables.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a point in time where anyone listening to us was just like, if I hear the word Shurima one more time. But yeah, no, like, we know for a fact, it's written plain as day in Vladimir's biography that he has been in power in Noxus for centuries. At the very least centuries. There are some references that are even before that, like outside of his bio, where it might be closer to like at least a millennia or something like that. So Vladimir goes way back. If he goes way back and we're seeing him report to LeBlanc in a more subordinate position, it is like it feels safe to assume that LeBlanc also goes back centuries to millennia. So it is very feasible that, or at least to me, it's very feasible that Mordekaiser was fed a lie, or at least all the Noxian people were fed a lie as far as how to get into the afterlife, or like this creation of an afterlife. And it's not outside of the realm of satire for religion to be put in a position of a way to control people.
Mhm.
And so now it's just more of a question, does the Black Rose want to control anyone? Wait. I think that question's been answered.
As we said, theology episode coming soon. Episode 700 is right around the corner. Yeah, but we'll leave it there because I mean, this trailer was a minute and something. So the fact that we've been talking for 20 minutes is enough, and we'll have endless episodes where we come back to visit this content because we're in this space where, because of there's some missing clarity on when we should expect this stuff, and I think Riot's doing that on purpose by capitalizing on obviously the fervor we still have from season 2 and the excitement we have from the immediate trailer for Welcome to Noxus. So we're keeping our options open to make sure we're giving you enough content that's related to what could be coming out, while also still doing, the other stories, because we have plenty of stories still to tell that could be influenced or changed or retconned or who knows. We have an episode coming up after this that was sort of retconned. So we'll have episodes that follow that too, of, hey, this story changed, but some of this was kept. Let's just go through it anyways, right? Because it's fun to know where we came from, because like Hetch has mentioned in the past, there's been 12 years plus of League of Legends story writing. We don't just want to throw it away. It's like Star Wars Legends, right? There was some good shit in there. Like, let's remember that stuff and let's tell people about that stuff, even though it's no longer canon.
I mean, it's important to remember that stuff, not only because, we enjoy it and we don't want to forget about it, but it's important to remember it because, that is where all of this came from. Whether you like that fact or not, that's where it came from. Because a lot of stories have gotten a lot better. A lot of stories haven't been touched. I gotta give the Shaco player a shout out here. So it's important to hold on to all that because we get to see just how far it's come, and all that time is part of the reason why we're here making the show. We wouldn't be making the show without it. So it's fun. It's fun to look at, and I can't wait to talk about like our next one because there's been a lot to change. So wrap it up. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with the next episode.